Okay, welcome back, economists. We are here to think about the second half of the problem of externalities. In the previous video, I introduced you to the general topic of market failure and what that is. And more specific than that, we got into what negative externalities are. So if you haven't watched that video up until this point, make sure you hit the pause button and you go watch that one now. Okay, so we're going to get into positive externalities now. And we're going to assume that you know those things. Okay? So remember, an externality has three components to it. There's a market for something, there's the producer, there's the consumer, and then there's the third party. So at least with the idea of positive externalities, the two questions that we started with in our last video, that's obviously already been answered for us. Is the impact to the third party positive or negative? Obviously, the benefit here is positive, right? So a third party, as a result of some sort of transaction, is going to be benefited from either the production of something or the consumption of something. Now, you might think that's a good thing. That's not a problem. But remember that if something is a positive externality, right, that means then that there's not enough of that thing, that the market is under-allocating resources towards the consumption or the production of that good or that service. Okay, so we have our first question answered. The benefit to the third party is good, but the problem is there's not enough of it. Okay, so that second thing there, does that impact result from consuming that product or producing that product? Okay, so now we're going to talk through two examples here with the market for vaccines, kind of a timely example, and also the market for organic food, so we can try to make the distinction between consumption and production. So let's just maybe get into it then. So remember, when we're thinking about how to diagram an externality, it's basically a scaled up version of supply and demand. Okay, so remember, demand is the idea of marginal social benefit, right? The benefit to society of consuming one more good or one more service, okay? And then the supply is marginal social cost, or the cost to society of consuming or producing one more thing, right? Remember, this is optimal demand, not actual demand. This is optimal supply, not actual supply. Okay? So when we have these two things interacting here, we don't have an externality. We don't have market failure. We have just the right amount of supply, just the right amount of demand. We are allocatively efficient at this quantity, no problem, right? But I think we can all agree at the moment that vaccines are under-consumed, or you could say flu shots, right? Same idea here, right? They are under-consumed. It is the act of actually going and getting a flu shot that results in a positive impact to a third party. So in this case, the third party is going to be people who don't buy flu shots and don't buy vaccines. There will be a benefit to them because flu shots and vaccines and healthcare, generally speaking, increases the productivity of society. The labor force becomes more effective, wages go up, incomes go up, standard of living goes up. That benefits everybody. But even further to that, vaccines and flu shots, they stop the spread of disease, right? So even if you don't take a flu shot or you don't get a vaccine, you are less likely personally to get sick because other people are consuming those. Okay, so the problem there is it is under-consumed, right? So our actual demand will be less than our optimal demand, right? So we're going to draw a second demand curve because we have decided that this is a consumption externality, and then MPB, again, that stands for marginal private benefit, okay? Or this is actual demand, optimal demand. Actual demand is less than optimal demand. Okay? So this is really market equilibrium. Okay? So this is the real equilibrium. This is where people are buying and selling this product. You'll notice here that a price of 1 is less than the optimal price because vaccines are undervalued. People don't buy enough of them. People don't think they have enough value to consume them properly, right? And we can notice here that our quantity of 1 is less than our optimal quantity. We can say that vaccines are under-consumed. Okay? So, in our negative externality graphs, we thought about the idea of deadweight loss, as in that is actually illustrating the part of the graph where the third party has been damaged in some way. In this case, the third party has been is going to be benefited in some way. So we're actually going to label this same idea here. We're going to find the actual quantity, and then we're going to go up and we're going to find the distance between the demand curves and shade towards the optimal quantity there. Okay, so we're not going to label this as deadweight loss. This is actually potential welfare gain, right? It is potential and not actual welfare gain because the product is underconsumed, right? If there were the optimal amount of demand, this potential welfare gain would become actualized welfare gain, and it would disappear, and the benefit to the third party would actually be happening. But since it's underconsumed, it is potential welfare gain and not deadweight loss. Okay, so that is a positive consumption externality. Now, we can also have a positive production externality. This is our fourth diagram, right? So it is a little bit difficult to distinguish between positive consumption and positive production, as in, you might be thinking, well, wait, aren't these vaccines probably underconsumed as well? And that's why people aren't buying enough of them? That is a good argument to make. I think that's an appropriate way to think about this one. I'm just using a nice sort of clear-cut example for the purpose of this video, right? So I think if you were to say that vaccines are a positive production, that also fits, right? But we're really thinking about this question. Does the impact result from consuming or producing the product, right? In this case, it's actually going and getting the shot into your arm that stops the spread of disease, okay? So positive production externalities are actually quite difficult to think about most of the time. I have chosen the market for organic food, right? Because in that way, it's the actual production process of the food that has an impact to a third party that's good, right? If we use organic farming methods, we will cut down on pollution. We'll have healthier soils. You could even maybe say indoor farming or urban farming, people farming without soil, right? And using some sort of a water system to do that, right? So less destruction of habitat for animals. Those are important natural resources that every country has. So for all those reasons, we're going to say that the market for organic food is a production externality, and it's a positive one. There's a benefit to a third party that is good when organic food is made, the production process, right? So same deal here. This is the optimal price. This is the optimal quantity. Supply, that is marginal social cost. Demand is marginal social benefit, right? And remember, this is a production externality, so we're actually going to have two supply curves, right? Over here we have two demand curves. This is a consumption externality. This is a production one, okay? So you'd have to think, is organic food, is it overproduced or underproduced, right? And remember, a hint at that is we're keeping in mind here that the impact to the third party is a positive one, right? So we're going to say that organic food is underproduced, so we're going to draw our actual supply curve to the left of optimal supply, okay? So it will look something like this, okay? There's our actual supply, there's our actual price, there's our actual quantity, okay? So you might notice here the actual price is greater than the optimal price, and a good way to think about that, again, is prices are largely determined by costs, right? It is more expensive to make organic food and use those kind of farming methods than conventional farming, right? So it's more expensive because the costs are higher. And again, here we are showing that this is underproduced. We have a Q1 that is less than the optimal quantity. Okay, so again, same deal over here. We have potential welfare gain. All of those benefits that I described, even to people that don't consume organic food, they'll still have those benefits. We're going to find our actual quantity produced here, which is Q1. Follow that line up, and the distance between the supply curves. Okay, again, that is potential welfare gain, and it is potential because this product is underproduced. As in, if there were more of it to be produced, this potential gain would become actual welfare gain, but it's a problem of a underproduction, probably because organic food is more expensive to produce than using some more traditional farming methods. Okay, so two simple questions can unlock the answer if you're trying to go from just a supply and demand diagram to an externalities graph, right? And that's first to consider, is the impact to the third party a good one, right? Do they benefit from that, or are they damaged? If the impact to the third party is a negative one, that thing is over-allocated, it's overproduced or over-consumed. And then if it's a positive one, in the case of these two markets, that thing is under-consumed in the case of vaccine, or underproduced in the case of organic food, all right? And then for number two here, does that impact result from consuming the product or producing the product? Here it's the actual act of going and getting that vaccine in your bloodstream and fighting disease and boosting your immune system and stopping the spread of other disease. That is the third party impact, right? So this is consumption, and then here this is production, because the actual methods of production for producing organic food are better for the environment, generally speaking, than traditional farming methods, so that is a production externality. Okay, so in our following videos, we're going to talk about, for all four of our types of externalities, what can we do about them? Because all four of them represent an economic problem. The market is not functioning. It's either making too much or it's not making enough. So we'll talk about how to solve those problems in our following videos. Okay? Thanks, guys.